What is going on out there, everybody? Hope you are all having a good day. Going to talk through some of the plays from the early slate. I'm going to talk through the main slate. I am not going to be here this afternoon for live, but I did post my core plays on SaberSim through TrueDFS, and I posted my early lineup builds on TrueDFS.com under my early builds. Anyway, let's get it today. As Rody says, don't forget if you guys don't mind, please hit the like button and all that stuff. So we're going to be talking through both slates today, and let's start with the early slate because it's a smaller one. I think we've got a couple different options of ways to go here, and I'm going to jump over and get to the SaberSim ownership because I trust it a little more than I do other sites that I've got right here. So for the early slate, the thing I'm going to do, I'm going to eat some of the chalk at pitching, obviously. I think that Burns and Bieber stand out a little bit too much. I think you could make an argument for Lance Lynn if you want to save the money, or Joe Ryan if you want to take a shot there. But those are what I'm playing, mostly just Burns and Bieber and Lynn. Those are the only three pitchers I'm actually using right now. And again, you could definitely throw Joe Ryan into the mix if you wanted to get creative, and I think that's fine to do. Catcher, it's going to be pretty obvious what people are going to do. I think that Kirk is going to be very popular. I'm not really fully stacking so much on the 4-game slate. I like the idea of getting pieces that I really like, and there's spots in every game that I can find. But Kirk would be my preferred option, but he's the most popular. I think I'm going to play some Narvaez, who's also going to have ownership as well. Those are my main ones, and I'm doing a little bit of a bottom Milwaukee mini stack. Try and get a little bit different, maybe leave out some of the big bats at the top, and just try and stick with like the Jace Peterson, Narvaez, and Urias type of thing, something like that, or Wong you could throw in there instead. First base, chalk, but I do love Vlad today. Andrew Vaughn would probably be my second favorite, but I think between one of those two guys is probably where I'm going to end up. If you want to save some money, I think your option is going to be Alex Kirilloff, batting fifth today for the Twins. I think he's a reasonable take a shot on, as is Owen Miller for Cleveland. Second base, I am going to be focused mostly on the Milwaukee guys. Urias I have a little bit ahead of Wong, but both of them are interesting to me. And I am going to probably not get too deep into it with anybody else. Those are going to be my main guys, and I'm just going to sort of roll with it. Not getting enough off the chalk there, but that's just what I'm doing. Obviously, Jose Ramirez is the best play at third base. One thing you can do is play Urias and Wong together. It'll be a little bit of a different build, and you could also use Jace Peterson in that same lineup and really get off the board. Get like they're all going to be owned, but the combination of Wong, Urias, and Peterson, if you like Milwaukee, which I do, I think is a really interesting way to go about it. So I kind of like that because you end up eating up the second base, third base, and one of your outfield spots, and all the players cross position. So I just don't think that's going to be the common way to stack. If I'm not using one of the Milwaukee guys or Ramirez, it would be Matt Chapman for me. Again, a little hard to get off the board on a 4-game slate, so you want to focus on lineup construction, how you're getting different, etc. Bichette's clearly the top shortstop. I think Rosario is going to be just as owned as he is. Those are going to be your two most popular. Adames is crazy expensive. I think I'd rather play Bichette at that price, but I don't mind if you want to play Adames. They're all going to be owned. And not really getting crazy different because I'm playing a lot of Bieber, but if I was, it would be playing Javi Baez would probably be my next favorite. I also think you could consider a really low owned like Nico Horner just to get a different type of build because, we do want to try and get a little bit off of this mega chalk. Too bad we can't use Nick Gordon at shortstop there anymore. In the outfield, I understand the Buxton love, the Teoscar love, the Springer love. I'm probably going to be fading those three guys and Yelich as well. I will play some Reyes. I will have Jace Peterson in some of my outfield spots. I will have, like I said, Reyes, Kwan, to maybe fill out a little 3-man stack for Cleveland. I think McCutchen is very reasonable. I'm just double checking the ownership on a few of these and seeing some of the other guys who I like who are a little lower on. Like Gavin Sheets, if you're not playing Joe Ryan. Lourdes Gurriel, maybe play him. It's a little bit slightly lower owned and cheaper than the other two outfielders from Toronto. I like Laureano if you're not going to not stacking just as a one-off. Other guys, if you're going to get contrarian, you can bat against Burns, Ortega or Happ certainly makes sense to me. And then you've also got Velasquez you could include in that mix as well. But again, hard to get off this chalk, so I'm focusing on doing like I've got right now in my main one, I've got a 3-3-2, but I've got the bottom of the order. And Tapia is another cheap option, assuming that he makes the lineup for Toronto today. But I think between Milwaukee, Cleveland, and Toronto is going to be where my ownership is on pretty much everywhere. I don't really love any of the other spots as much, and I think that Minnesota is going to end up, I don't want to say over-owned, but a little higher owned than I want them. So I'm going to probably just pass on them with the exception of maybe a Nick Gordon one-off because he is batting 6th today and he's 2,400, although I prefer Jace Peterson. Let's talk more about this, and I'm just looking at it real quick. Let's see. I'll get to the questions in just a second, guys. And sorry, I'm on my late slate and I'm juggling back and forth. People are, sure, if you want to stack Oakland, to answer that question, Eric, Cleveland stack is chalky. This is why I'm not fully stacking on these slates, and I don't think there's any reason to have to. And if people are going to say, oh, well, the stacks win this many times. Well, if everybody 5-man stacks and does the same thing on a 4-game slate, to me, that's just lazy, bad DFS. That's my personal take. Now, there's different 4-game slates where, of course, you might want to do it on certain things. I don't see it having to do that. I also see you as doing the same thing as everybody else if you're going to do that. So Cleveland stack should be chalky, yes. Is playing Detroit chasing? Yeah, I think Detroit's a terrible play, personally. That would be my least favorite team to stack. Right there with Chicago. Both of them, I think, are pretty terrible plays. Again, terrible plays can work on small slates, so I'm not gonna say you write it off, but I don't see any reason to chase a guy who never really gets hit hard. I'm just gonna take a quick look here and make sure that I'm being accurate when I say that. If you're stacking Detroit against a guy who doesn't give up home runs, doesn't walk people, and strikes out a bunch of guys, just is a bad play. But hey, can it work? It's a 4-game slate. You can get creative with it. I don't like it at all. Oakland is low ownership. Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't be low ownership. I mean, if this was last night's slate, Berrios would be the chalk pitcher at 8,100. It's a great spot for Berrios. Oakland is a terrible offense, and I do like that. For what it's worth, I prefer Oakland to Detroit, and I don't mind if you want to use some Oakland one-offs and stuff, but certainly doesn't surprise me that Oakland's low owned. There is no reason to me to play Oakland except for the ownership factor. This is not like a good spot for them. They don't have a good offense. Berrios is a better than average pitcher, and I'm not stacking Oakland. 5-man stacks much better on bigger slates in general. On the little tiny slates, just you can get different and win. I mean, it keeps happening for me. I mean, you make a couple different little changes and just the way you go about your order of how you do things. And like I said, I sort of like that idea of playing the Wong, Urias, and Jace Peterson together because of the position crossover, and that's a way to getting exposure to popular players without having to get off of a stack that you like, or I like anyway. But yeah, I mean, I went through each position. Those are pretty much my early slate thoughts. I don't think there's any reason for me to try to go out of my way to overly stack, except for I do think that if there's a team that I think really goes off today, it probably would be Toronto. But I certainly understand the arguments for Cleveland after a dud last night. And I think that there's a good argument as well for Milwaukee against Sampson and a bad bullpen behind him in a good hitting environment. So I like the bottom of that stack. I'm probably going to skip everybody in the top 4 of Milwaukee, and that's how I would mini stack with the rest of those guys. You could. I think playing one Cub would be what I would do to answer the Cubs for high leverage. This is what people make the mistake of doing all the time is they say, oh, well, this is going to happen, so I'm just going to fully stack the team in the worst spot. It's just not the right way to play. It's another version of, to me, lazy DFS. It's good to think contrarian, but it doesn't mean you need to play a full 5-man stack against Burns. Maybe play 1 or 2 Cubs. That's a way of getting different enough. And by the way, this slate is small enough. You could play 1 or 2 of them and play Burns if you wanted to. So Eric hates Burns. Okay, so don't play. You know what? If you don't play Burns, you got plenty of other pick. You can go with the very easy switch over to Bieber and Berrios, or Bieber and Lynn, or Berrios and Lynn. Or Joe Ryan. There's plenty of other options if you don't want to play Burns. In general, Burns is exactly the kind of guy you want to play in DFS. He and Bieber, I mean, they just. Like Burns has had one bad game this season and basically has just absolutely massacred everybody in every other spot. So there's safety and obviously it's a great matchup. It's pretty much the net spot for Burns. Joe Ryan's not getting slept on. It's just the other guys who are available today. He is nowhere near the upside of these guys, and he is nowhere near the floor of these guys. So I understand why people aren't playing him. Now, if you think if you think the ownership difference is too much, then go ahead and do it. But it's not like you're talking about a guy who's he's probably going to still end up near 20% owned. That's a little too high for me when the other guys I think are just so much better plays than he is on average and for distance, because we have two of the most elite pitchers for DFS, and I know Bieber's numbers have been a little bit down this year. He's got these are the two best pitchers with the two best matchups are just hard for me to avoid. I don't even feel I just don't feel like I need to get overly creative with pitching when I can find different types of builds and maybe make a few different plays. Like I said, stacking the very bottom of my favorite stacks is one way to go. Stacking Toronto without Vlad, he's still probably gonna have a little too high ownership to do that, but just try not to try and just stack the bottom of the orders and maybe pick a couple of your own one. Last game only had 5Ks. Is that what we're doing nowadays? We say your last game you only had 5 strikeouts, so we don't play you anymore. The previous games I believe he's averaging 9 strikeouts per start. The Cubs are one of the most strikeout heavy teams in baseball, one of the worst offenses in baseball. I would take a K prop look rather than I would something like what he threw in the last game. I just think that's a really silly way of doing it. All right, let's see. Who would I fade, Burns or Bieber to get to Berrios? I'm playing both Burns and Bieber in. I would fade Bieber if I had to pick one of the two, but I would probably be going to Lance Lynn next, then Ryan, then Berrios. All of those guys are very good, though. Look, all of these pitchers I feel better about than anybody we had last night, and we have a 4-game slate. We have 5 guys who I would have jumped at last night to play, and I couldn't do it because we had. I mean, it would be awesome. The Cubs are terrible, and they're missing guys. They're just it's a really, really elitely bad offense, if that's even a thing. They're just really, really bad. So anyway, let me know when you guys want to talk about the later slate. I'm going to double check and just see if I have, one of my last steps. I always take a look at the pitching umpires real quick. I haven't done that for the early slate yet. I did do it a little bit for the later. Let me see this real quick, and we will get that information. But keep firing on questions and thoughts, and then we will talk about the main slate. As I said, I do not have. I will not be here for live today for the main slate, as I have something I have to take care of. So, nothing dramatic at all with the umpires today. So I don't see any reason to do anything different than what we've talked about. Nothing worried about the weather in the early games. So that's pretty much all I've got for my early game stuff. Jays, yeah, absolutely, they're going to be popular, but maybe you just play. For me, I'm just picking out a couple of them, and they're using them to fill out lineups. My favorites being Vlad and Bichette. I know you're going to have some ownership, so I'm going to have to get different elsewhere. Like I said, I think you can throw Tapia and make it a nice little 3-man. And Tapia is never the most fun guy to roster, but remember, it's a smaller slate. He's actually been okay this year. He's an okay real-life hitter. Doesn't have a ton of power, but he's 2K, and I think people aren't going to play him because they don't necessarily need those savings. The main slate, I don't even know if that game's going to play. So I have no interest in Glenn Otto, but I mean, it's fine. Like in normal circumstances, if you did it, you could definitely take that chance. I don't see the reason you would want to do it because I just don't want to do it. But especially with the weather concerns, it's going to make it hard for me. So that would have to be revisited later, which obviously I'm not going to be here for live. But as of right now, Glenn Otto is not one of the pitchers I'm using on the main slate. I am going to be very heavy on Nola, Javier, Severino, and Bello. It will be my cheapo guy for the Red Sox. This kid's been awesome in the minor leagues. I love guys who haven't been faced before. He's only 5K, allows you to do whatever you want. So I think that's a really viable way to go. Those are my 4 pitchers I'm using on the main slate. I do like the Dodgers as on the main slate. I know it's going to be the ultimate chalk, but I also want to point out that we have what I'm going to do is I am going to be playing pretty heavily on San Francisco as my complementary stack. There will be probably at least 2 players from San Francisco in all my lineups. I have no fear about you guys know this. I know he's been good this year. I understand that he may have changed some things. I am still going to attack Merrill Kelly in spots where I think he's attackable. I also don't trust that bullpen behind him. So you're going to get some at-bats against them as well. For what it's worth, Merrill Kelly has not been very good against this Giants team. He's got a 15% K rate. They're hitting 265 off of him. and they, 2-1 strikeout to walk. He has been pretty good with his control, but the lack of striking any of these guys out definitely has me a little bit interested in a low-owned San Francisco complementary stack for the main slate. That's what I'm trying to do. Sawinski Cruz, 2-man. So I'm going to go to try to figure out what you mean here. Neil Cruz. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, absolutely. No problem with it whatsoever. If you want to get different, I personally would just side with Severino's pretty good. I don't need to play those guys, but I never am going to mind Sawinski or Cruz. And I believe in the talent that is there. Pittsburgh's a little better than everybody thinks. If I was going to try and play a 2-man, though, in general from Pittsburgh, it's always going to use any sort of stack I'm doing with Pittsburgh, even a mini one. I always try and get Ryan Reynolds in there just because I love him. All right, Dodgers are criminally cheap tonight. Yeah, they are. They're way too cheap in pretty much every spot. They're going to be very, very popular. You can stack the bottom of the order. You can try to leave Mookie off of the stack, although I don't love it at that price. It's actually really hard for me to keep Mookie out of any lineup at that price. Just too ridiculous. I like what Eric's asking here about Houston. I think Houston is an awesome stack to play instead of the Dodgers. They definitely have the upside. We know that there's tons of power. They're expensive in certain spots, which is going to make it hard to play them. So I think going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is my favorite way of doing it. If you wanted to get a little bit different with it, you can play one of the outfielders, either Myers or McCormick, and they're going to be low owned. But I think Houston is going to be low owned tonight, considering the size that it's a small slate and they've got an over 5-run total because they're a full run less than the Dodgers. And Houston, Philadelphia, and the Yankees are probably the best pivots. Normally I am going to go with the super low owned San Francisco Giants as my complimentary stack. Lamont Wade, Brandon Crawford, Yastrzemski, Brandon Belt, Jock. Those are going to be the guys I mostly focus on. And I'll get some Wilmer Flores in there as well. So that's sort of what I'm doing on that one. Yeah, Houston is going to be low owned as of right now. I think it's going to change. I think they'll pick up some ownership throughout the day, but the Dodgers are going to dominate the ownership a lot. That's why I wanted to find the really low owned team to pair them with, and that's why it just made sense to me to make that team the Giants for me and go against my old friend Merrill Kelly. Houston Giants stack. I like that. You go super low owned. Why not? Absolutely no problem with that personally. I'm going to go. I think the Dodgers are going to score some runs tonight, so I'm going to have Dodgers included in all my lineups. And I am going to be heaviest on San Francisco, as I mentioned. Other than them, if it was another team that I was going to fully stack, it would probably go Houston and Philly. Really close for me. Josiah Gray with a lot of talent, but also a lot of bust potential. And you have a patient Philadelphia team. Just seems like a spot where you could try to attack him. If he does one of those 4 walks in the first 3 innings teams, you get one swing and Philadelphia might just light him on fire, especially because how bad that bullpen is in Washington. Thanks a lot, Rich B. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot to everybody. Reminder that all my early builds are up on True DFS. All my core plays are up on SaberSim. And let's make some money today, guys. Good luck to everybody. Thanks to my buddy Eric and everybody else who made the chat. And we'll hopefully see one of you guys take something down.